Anna is a young woman who, at first glance, lives a flawless life. Her marriage to Pavel, a successful and caring man, is the envy of everyone around her. People admire their seemingly perfect union, which they can be proud of. They live in a large country house with a garden, which creates a sense of a calm and measured life. They have everything to be happy, and their friends see them as role models. Anna leads an exemplary lifestyle, always neatly dressed, always smiling discreetly. She takes care of the house, takes care of the household, and her relationship with her husband seems harmonious. But the more time she spends in this calm rhythm, the more she begins to realize that her life is far from simple. Pavel is constantly busy at work and often goes on business trips, leaving Anna alone for long hours. Despite all his care and attention that he shows when he is around, Anna begins to feel that she is missing something. She cannot formulate exactly what this emptiness is, but the feeling of it is growing. These feelings intensify after Anna's father, Vladimir, returns to their lives. He had been away from the family for a long time on business, and their communication was limited to rare calls and meetings. Now Vladimir unexpectedly appears in his daughter's life, coming to their house more and more often. Pavel greets his father-in-law with open arms, not suspecting that this event will be the beginning of profound changes in their family life. At first glance, Vladimir is an ordinary man of a certain age, full of life experience, which he likes to share in his long conversations with his daughter. However, there is something in his behavior that is not immediately obvious to those around him. With each of his visits, Anna begins to feel a strange mixture of emotions, nostalgia for childhood and a sense of security that she once felt in his presence. But along with this come other, more complex feelings that she cannot immediately comprehend. Anna gradually begins to spend more and more time with her father. Together they discuss the past, recalling long-forgotten moments from her childhood. These conversations seem to give her what she has not felt in everyday life for so long: attention, care, and a sense of being understood. Vladimir turns out to be someone who can listen to her without judgment, and Anna feels that in his presence she can be herself. Pavel, carried away by his career and constant affairs, does not notice changes in Anna's behavior. He still trusts her and believes that their relationship is as strong as before. But Anna begins to withdraw into herself more and more often. Her thoughts are occupied with something else. Her glances at her father become more and more prolonged, and she finds something new and strange in their communication, which she cannot yet explain to herself. One day, when Pavel goes on a business trip again, Vladimir stays at their house for a longer period. Anna experiences internal tension, not understanding what exactly is bothering her. She walks around the house, trying to occupy herself with routine tasks, but her thoughts constantly return to conversations with her father, to his attention, to those moments when they were alone. And although at first glance everything looks calm, a deep internal conflict begins in Anna's soul. She cannot understand why her thoughts return to these conversations, why it is so difficult for her to focus on everyday affairs. The feeling of something wrong is growing stronger, but she cannot yet give it a clear name. By the end of the first part, it becomes clear to the audience that Anna's perfect life is just an illusion. Her inner world begins to crumble, and behind the outer facade of calm, shadows of complex, unresolved feelings lurk. Vladimir continues to exert influence on her, and what began as ordinary communication begins to turn into something much more complex and dangerous. This section sets the stage for future events by revealing details of an outwardly perfect life that hides deeper conflicts and feelings. Something new, but also frighteningly familiar, begins to happen in Anna's life. After a long break, her father Vladimir suddenly becomes a permanent part of her daily life. This does not happen right away. At first he comes for just a few days, but over time his visits become more frequent and longer. He behaves casually, unhurriedly, as if he had been preparing for these meetings for a long time, bringing himself back into his daughter's life step by step. Anna, at first a little constrained by his appearance, begins to get used to his presence. At the beginning of the second visit, she is even glad of his company. Finally, someone is nearby, someone who is ready to listen, support, and even advise. After all, Pavel, despite his efforts, is too immersed in his work, constantly on business trips and always busy. He simply does not have time to notice how his wife is changing. But Vladimir sees it, and what's more, he uses it to his advantage. During one of their evening conversations in the kitchen, when Anna has cooked dinner, the two of them remain sitting at the table with glasses of wine in their hands. Vladimir begins asking her questions about her life. What is happening in her family? Is she happy? Anna answers carefully, trying to convince both herself and him that her life is perfect. But Vladimir, looking at her with insight, easily notices that there are doubts hidden behind these answers. "Don't you think something is missing?" he asks cautiously with a slight smile on his face, but his gaze is serious. Anna thinks for a moment. She is not used to discussing her feelings with anyone, especially her father, but his question strikes at the heart of her worries. Yes, something is missing. She feels it, but she doesn't know how to explain it. Vladimir, noticing her confusion, continues, "We all need to be understood sometimes. I went through that too. Your mother never understood me the way I wanted her to," he adds as if by accident, but these words cause new thoughts in Anna. Over the next few days, Vladimir becomes increasingly the center of her attention. He is in no hurry to leave, and Anna, against her will, begins to realize that their relationship is no longer what it once was. As a child, she rarely saw her father, and their relationship was rather distant. But now that they spend so much time together, Anna feels that she is more at ease with him. He becomes her confidant, someone who understands her on a deep level that Pavel has not understood for a long time. They are increasingly alone. Sometimes it is just a conversation, but sometimes Vladimir brings up memories from the past that begin to stir Anna. She remembers how, as a child, she looked to him for support, which she could not always get from her mother. Her father was a hero to her, and now these childhood memories return with renewed vigor. However, with this, more complex feelings return, adult emotions that she is not able to immediately comprehend. One day, Vladimir invites Anna to go out of town, just to spend a day together, to escape from everyday worries. She agrees, feeling that she needs a break from the pressure of her home routine. They go for a walk through an old forest that reminds Anna of her childhood. Here, in this calm and quiet place, they discuss many topics, from work to childhood memories. Vladimir tells her stories from his past, and each story makes Anna trust him more and more. However, by the end of the day, Vladimir begins to make conversation that Anna cannot immediately understand. He delicately, almost casually, hints that their relationship has always been special, that there is something more between them than just family. He emphasizes how important it has been for him to always be there for her, despite the long years of separation. Anna listens to these words, but anxiety begins to grow inside her. For the first time, she feels awkward in his presence, but she cannot look away. Her mind tells her that something is wrong, but her heart disagrees. When they return home, Anna can't get her father's words out of her head. She begins to worry. What's really going on? Why do these conversations cause her such complicated feelings? She remembers how many years ago, in her youth, she looked to him for protection, but now his attention seems different to her than it once did. Meanwhile, Pavel leaves again on a business trip, leaving Anna alone with her thoughts. The house is silent, and she cannot shake off the feeling of emptiness, which is now accompanied by memories of her walk with Vladimir. Her inner world is on the verge of destruction, On the one hand, she is attached to her father, but on the other, she begins to feel that this attachment is developing into something not quite right. Vladimir, feeling that he has won her trust, begins to act more and more confidently. He uses every opportunity to be near Anna, doing it unobtrusively, but constantly reminding her of himself. Anna does not yet understand the full depth of what is happening, but the audience sees that her father is gradually gaining control over the situation. By the end of the second part, it becomes clear that their relationship is starting to go beyond the usual family. Although everything still looks normal on the outside, the internal drama is only gaining momentum. Anna is at a crossroads, not understanding what to do with the overwhelming feelings, and Vladimir slowly but surely begins to lead her to decisive moments that will change their lives forever. Several weeks had passed since Vladimir, Anna's father, had become a part of her daily life. His visits to the house had become not rare but almost regular. At first this was unexpected for Anna, but over time she began to get used to his constant presence. Vladimir supported her in difficult moments, was always ready to listen and give advice. With each passing day, Anna felt more and more attached to her father, although she could not always explain to herself why. Pavel, her husband, continued to be busy with his business, was rarely at home, and did not notice the changes in Anna's behavior. He assumed that everything was fine, and that the tension in their relationship was temporary, caused by his busy schedule. He had no idea that in his absence, Vladimir was becoming an increasingly important figure for Anna, almost like emotional support, which she had not received for a long time. One day, when Pavel went on a business trip again, Vladimir suggested that Anna spend the evening together, take a walk in the park and have dinner at a small restaurant nearby. Anna agreed, feeling that she needed to take a break from her routine and just spend time in the fresh air. At the beginning of the walk, the conversations were light and casual. They recalled the past, discussed family matters. However, over time, Anna began to notice that her father was becoming more and more frank in his thoughts about life and their relationship. During dinner at a restaurant, Vladimir began to talk about how he missed communicating with her in the past. He shared his experiences, telling how he had longed to establish a relationship with her when he was away. Anna, listening to these words, felt both touched and a little embarrassed. It seemed to her that the conversation was taking on a more personal character than usual, but she could not understand why this bothered her. After dinner, Vladimir walked Anna home, and they continued their conversation in a more relaxed atmosphere. Vladimir emphasized how much she meant to him and that their connection was special. Anna, although she felt inner uneasiness, was grateful for his attention. She could not remember the last time someone had said such kind and sincere words to her. At that moment, it seemed to her that only he understood her and could give her the support she lacked. However, with each subsequent visit, Anna began to notice that her thoughts were increasingly focused on her conversations with her father. She remembered what he said, his look, his words. Gradually, this began to distract her from other matters and even from her relationship with Pavel. She became increasingly immersed in her thoughts about how her life had changed since her father's return. Pavel continued to ignore what was happening. He was completely absorbed in his work and didn't think about the fact that their marriage could be at risk. He trusted Anna and was sure that their relationship remained strong, despite rare conflicts and misunderstandings. Anna, however, increasingly felt an internal conflict, not understanding how to cope with these new, confusing feelings. Vladimir, noticing her confusion, used this vulnerability to continue to deepen their communication. He often invited her on walks, offered to spend more time together, help her with household chores. With each new day, Anna felt more and more that her father had become more than just a close person to her, but something more than family ties. She could not define it, but she could not ignore it either. By the end of the third part, viewers see Anna begin to lose control of her emotions. She tries to act as usual, but her thoughts become increasingly immersed in her relationship with her father. Her inner world becomes increasingly complex and confusing, and she can no longer ignore the changes that are happening in her life. Vladimir, realizing that he has an increasing influence on his daughter, continues to deepen their emotional connection, gradually increasing his influence. With each passing day, Anna becomes more and more immersed in her conflicting emotions and thoughts. Her life, which once seemed calm and predictable, begins to fall apart. She feels an internal tension that she cannot explain even to herself. Every morning when she wakes up, she tries to return to her usual routine, but her thoughts always return to the conversation with her father and their time spent together. This feeling begins to frighten her, but she is unable to get rid of it. Vladimir continues to appear in her life more and more often. He has become an almost permanent guest in their home, especially when Pavel is away on business. His visits no longer seem casual or innocent to Anna. She begins to feel that something more complex than just a family relationship is developing between them. With each new conversation, Vladimir becomes more attentive to her thoughts and feelings, and Anna understands that his words have an impact on her. One evening, when Pavel was away on a business trip again, Vladimir invited Anna for a walk along the river. This place was special to her. She often visited it as a child with her parents. The nature and the landscapes made her feel nostalgic, and it was this atmosphere that allowed her to relax. However, during this walk, Vladimir started a conversation that changed their relationship forever. They were walking along the river when Vladimir, looking at the water, suddenly said, "You know, Anna, I often think that in life nothing happens by chance. Everything that happens, happens for a reason." Anna looked at him carefully, but said nothing. She didn't know where he was going with this, but she sensed something more in his tone than just thoughts about life. "We've been through a lot together," Vladimir continued. "You've always been special to me. I'd like you to know how much you mean to me." These words caused Anna to have mixed feelings. On the one hand, she was pleased to hear such things from her father. On the other hand, something in his voice made her wary. He spoke too slowly, too thoughtfully, and his words did not sound like a normal conversation between family members. Anna felt awkward, but didn't know how to react. She tried to change the subject, talking about other things, about work, about home, about everyday matters. However, Vladimir did not give in to her attempt to avoid the conversation. He continued to look at her attentively, as if trying to read her thoughts. After a strange conversation with Vladimir on a walk, Anna returns home with a feeling of anxiety that squeezes her chest more and more. She feels like something is wrong, but she can't figure out exactly what is bothering her so much. Thoughts about what Vladimir said don't give her peace. Her father's words sound in her head more and more often, and she begins to wonder what is hidden behind his phrases. Anna tries to return to her normal life. She resumes her daily routine, cleaning the house, tending to the garden, planning family events. However, her thoughts constantly return to her father. The more she tries to distract herself, the more conflicting feelings overwhelm her. Her mental balance is disturbed, and it begins to affect everything she does. When Pavel finally returns from his business trip, Anna notices that her relationship with him is becoming increasingly cold. Pavel, although he loves her, cannot help but notice that Anna has changed. He feels that she is moving away, but cannot understand the reason. He tries to establish contact, offers to spend time together, but Anna always finds excuses to distance herself. She wants to be with her husband less and less. Her thoughts are occupied with another person. One evening, sitting alone on the terrace, Anna begins to realize that she is drawn to her father more and more. She cannot explain these feelings and does not understand where they come from. It seems to her that their meetings are becoming something more than just communication between relatives. She cannot ignore the fact that Vladimir has a huge influence on her. She remembers how they talked about fate, how he looked at her as if he saw her as more than just a daughter. These thoughts frighten Anna, but at the same time she cannot get rid of them. Every day her feelings for her father become more and more confused. She tries to analyze what is happening, but does not find answers. She feels like she is losing control over herself, and this makes her afraid. Meanwhile, Vladimir continues to visit their home regularly. He keeps a low profile, but Anna senses that his behavior has changed. Now his presence causes her mixed emotions. She simultaneously longs to be near him, but at the same time fears where this might lead. Her mind tells her that all this is wrong, but her heart refuses to listen. During one of these visits, Vladimir is alone with Anna again. They talk in the living room, discussing small things, but the atmosphere becomes tense. Vladimir again begins to talk about the past, remembering moments when they were closer to each other. He increasingly mentions how important their communication is to him, how much she means to him. Anna tries to hold back her emotions, but her feelings for her father become more and more obvious. She begins to understand that she can no longer ignore them. Her gaze increasingly lingers on Vladimir, and she notices that his presence is becoming more and more significant for her. By the end of the evening, Anna feels completely confused. Her internal conflict reaches its peak, and she knows she must do something, but she doesn't know what. On the one hand, she realizes that their relationship is going beyond what is acceptable. On the other hand, she is drawn to him and she can't explain why. Anna is increasingly immersed in the emotional chaos that is rapidly developing around her. Every morning when she wakes up, she feels a strong tension, as if something important is slipping away from her life. Her thoughts are constantly occupied with Vladimir. Even when she tries to distract herself with everyday activities, his image haunts her, causing her strong internal conflicts. Relations with Pavel continue to deteriorate. Pavel, although he tries, does not understand what is happening to his wife. He notices her detachment but believes that all this is connected with ordinary problems. He suggests spending the weekend together, going to nature to distract themselves from work and household routine. Anna agrees, but her thoughts remain far from her husband and their joint vacation. Meanwhile, Vladimir continues to influence her life. His visits to the house become more frequent, and Anna no longer knows how to react. She notices that every time he is around, her inner tension only increases. Her affection for him grows, despite the fear and doubts that haunt her day after day. One evening, when Pavel was away on a business trip again, Vladimir came to visit uninvited. Anna opened the door with a feeling of anxiety, but seeing her father, she could not refuse him a visit. They sat in the kitchen, drank a cup of tea, but the conversation was difficult. Anna felt a strange atmosphere that she could not explain. Vladimir, on the contrary, looked calm and confident, as if he knew what to do next. During the conversation, Vladimir began to talk about fate and his relationship with Anna more and more openly. "You must understand that there has always been a special connection between us," he said, looking her straight in the eyes. "And it goes beyond what can be called an ordinary family." These words struck Anna, but she had felt this for a long time. She could not deny that their communication had become something more than just father and daughter conversations. She was drawn to him more and more, and although she tried to hide it even from herself, everything inside her was seething. Anna tried to interrupt the conversation, stood up to put the cups away, but Vladimir stopped her, taking her hand. His touch was soft, but at the same time tense. Anna felt a wave of anxiety and embarrassment run through her body. "You shouldn't be afraid of your feelings," Vladimir said quietly. "We can't control what we feel. Sometimes our hearts know better than our minds." Anna froze in place, her thoughts spinning chaotically. She didn't know what to say. Her mind was telling her to stop, to distance herself, to end this communication. But her heart refused to listen. For a moment, they were both silent. Anna finally pulled her hand away from his and turned away to hide the emotions that were beginning to overwhelm her. She was ashamed of what she felt, but at the same time she could not deny the truth of his words. She felt a strong attachment to her father that was no longer purely familial. The whole evening passed in a heavy atmosphere. Anna felt as if she was trapped, not knowing how to cope with the emotions that had overwhelmed her. When Vladimir left, she was left alone with her thoughts, which had become almost unbearable for her. She found it difficult to comprehend what was happening. She was drawn to her father, but she was afraid to admit it to herself. Several weeks pass after that tense evening when Vladimir told Anna directly that their relationship went beyond the ordinary family relationship. These words became a turning point for her. She tried to forget what he said, but they did not give her peace. Every morning she woke up with a feeling of anxiety, realizing that her life would never be the same. Her inner world was cracking at the seams, and with each passing day this feeling only grew stronger. Relations with Pavel continued to deteriorate. Anna tried to behave as usual, but it was becoming increasingly difficult for her to hide her feelings. Pavel was busy with work and practically did not pay attention to the changes in her behavior, but he could not help but notice that their conversations were becoming more and more strained, and Anna herself was becoming more and more distant. At some points, she caught his glances, full of bewilderment, but each time she tried to avoid talking about what was really happening in her life. Pavel suggested going on vacation to restore their relationship and get closer again. Anna, although she agreed, felt that even this could not return her to her previous life. Her thoughts were occupied with Vladimir. Every time she was alone, she tried to understand her feelings, but it was unsuccessful. The more she tried to understand, the more confused she became. One evening, when Pavel was away on a business trip again, Anna was sitting in the kitchen with a cup of tea, thinking about the past weeks. She was overcome by a feeling of helplessness, but at the same time there was a feeling that she was sinking deeper and deeper into these new, unfamiliar emotions. At that moment, there was a knock on the door. It was Vladimir. Anna opened the door with a tremor in her heart, but she was not surprised to see her father. He walked in without asking if he could and immediately headed for the kitchen. There was a confidence in his demeanor that was mixed with something deeper, almost elusive. Anna tried to act calmly, offered him tea, but inside she was seething with mixed feelings. "I've been thinking about our last conversation for a long time," Vladimir said, sitting down at the table. "I don't want you to suffer from these doubts. You must understand that you and I are special, and what is happening between us is not accidental." Anna lowered her eyes, not knowing what to answer. She was torn apart inside. On the one hand, she was drawn to Vladimir's words, his attention, his confidence. On the other hand, her conscience tormented her. She understood that their relationship was going beyond what was permitted, but she could not resist her feelings. Vladimir continued, "You are always trying to run away from what you feel. But Anna, you can't fight it forever. We don't choose who to love. It happens by itself, and you have to accept it." Anna was silent. She felt her heart pounding, the fear of the inevitable gripping her. She knew Vladimir was right that she couldn't hide her feelings any longer, but admitting them meant destroying everything she knew. Her life, her marriage, her inner world. It was all on the brink of collapse. "I don't know what to do," Anna finally said quietly, feeling tears welling up in her eyes. "This isn't right. I can't live like this anymore." Vladimir looked at her and his expression softened. He stood up and walked over to Anna, placing his hands on her shoulders. His voice was quiet, almost soothing. "You must follow your heart. Don't be afraid of what you feel. I'm here, next to you. We'll get through this together." These words sounded like comfort to Anna, but at the same time they confused her even more. She felt like a bird in a cage that wanted to break free, but did not know how. Vladimir, seeing her confusion, carefully hugged her, and she did not pull away. At that moment, her internal conflict reached its peak. By evening, Vladimir had left, leaving Anna alone with her thoughts. She felt empty and trapped at the same time. Her mind was fighting with her heart, and this fight was exhausting her. She didn't know how to cope with the emotions that had overwhelmed her and couldn't find a way out of this situation. Over the next few days, Anna found herself increasingly in a state of deep thought. She could not focus on anything except her feelings for her father. Even simple household chores, such as cooking or cleaning, became difficult for her. Her thoughts constantly returned to Vladimir, and every time she recalled his words, her heart began to beat faster. Pavel, having returned from a business trip, tried to talk to her. He felt that something serious was going on, but he did not know how to approach this problem. He suggested discussing their relationship, but Anna only waved him off, saying that she was simply tired. Pavel was puzzled, but decided that it was not worth pressuring her, hoping that everything would work out on its own. However, Anna knew that their relationship could not be restored. She understood that her affection for Vladimir was becoming stronger and that she could no longer hide it. But what to do about it? How to proceed? These questions remained unanswered. After an intense evening with Vladimir, Anna increasingly realizes that she is on the edge of an abyss. Every day becomes a test for her. She spends less and less time with Pavel, trying to avoid conversations and glances that could reveal her inner contradictions. Anna is immersed in her thoughts and feelings, which completely captivate her. The relationship with Vladimir has long since gone beyond the boundaries of ordinary family ties. He has become more than just a father to her, but someone whose influence on her life cannot be ignored. With each visit, Vladimir becomes more confident, and Anna can no longer pretend that everything is going as usual. She is tormented by doubts and internal conflicts, but with each passing day she increasingly realizes that their relationship has gone beyond what is permissible. One day, Vladimir comes to Anna's house at a time when Pavel has left on a business trip again. This time, his presence gives Anna a sense of inevitability. She feels that this visit will be decisive. Vladimir acts confidently from the doorway, as if he already knows what will happen next. He arrives with flowers and a bottle of wine, creating an atmosphere of calm and relaxation that Anna has not felt for so long. They sit in the kitchen, drink wine, and talk, but the tension grows with each passing minute. Anna cannot concentrate on the usual topics. Her thoughts are absorbed by what is hidden behind their conversation. Vladimir, having sensed her state, finally decides to take the next step. He comes closer to her and says, "Anna, we can't pretend that nothing is happening between us anymore. You feel it just as much as I do. How much longer will you hide from what's inside you?" Anna is silent, feeling a strong internal tension. She understands that the moment has come when there is no turning back. Her heart beats faster and her mind resists, but she can no longer fight what she feels. She knows that if she takes this step, her life will change forever. Vladimir continues, his voice softening. "I'm not asking you to make a decision right now, but you have to understand that this isn't something wrong. This is something that happens naturally, and we can't run from it any longer." These words plunge Anna into even deeper thoughts. She knows that she is on the verge of destroying her family, her life, but at the same time she feels a strong attraction to her father, whom she cannot give up. Everything that she built with Pavel seems alien and distant to her compared to the emotion she feels for Vladimir. They continue to talk until late in the evening. Anna no longer tries to hide her feelings. She knows that Vladimir is right. She can no longer run away from her emotions. At some point, she realizes that this conversation is becoming the culmination of everything that has happened in her life in recent months. As Vladimir is about to leave, he suddenly embraces Anna. At that moment, all her doubts evaporate, and she returns his embrace, feeling that they have crossed the line that she was trying to hold on to. This is the moment that defines everything. Her inner world collapses completely, and she no longer sees a way back. After Vladimir leaves, Anna is left alone in the house. She feels empty and liberated at the same time. Her mind is no longer fighting with her feelings. She understands that her life will never be the same again, and that she will have to face the consequences of what happened. Pavel returns a few days later, but Anna is no longer the same. She looks at her husband with guilt and alienation, realizing that their marriage is broken. Pavel, despite his busy schedule, notices that Anna has changed, but he cannot understand what exactly happened. He tries to restore their relationship, but Anna becomes more and more distant, immersed in her thoughts about Vladimir. After that evening, when Anna finally realized her feelings for Vladimir and could no longer resist them, her life changed completely. She feels that everything around her is becoming alien. Her inner world is no longer what it used to be, and now she finds herself trapped in her own emotions. It seems to her that she can no longer return to her previous life. This feeling begins to haunt her every morning, every night. Pavel returns home from another business trip and immediately notices that his wife has changed. Anna is no longer the caring and attentive woman with whom he built his family life. She distances herself from him more and more, and even their communication becomes dry and strained. Pavel tries to talk to her, but all his attempts run into a cold wall of silence. Anna does not want to talk about what is really going on in her soul. It is too hard for her to admit that their marriage is on the verge of collapse because of her feelings for her father. Despite all this, Vladimir continues to visit Anna. His visits become even more frequent and open, as if he no longer sees the need to hide his intentions. Anna, although she realizes that this is wrong, cannot resist. She feels that she is under Vladimir's strong influence and is no longer able to fight these feelings. One evening, when Pavel was away on business again, Vladimir came to Anna's house. It was a quiet evening and everything around seemed familiar. But there was a tension in the air that was impossible not to notice. Anna already knew that she could no longer pretend that their relationship remained within the bounds of what was acceptable. Vladimir entered the house and they began a conversation that was much deeper and more frank than all the previous ones. Vladimir, noticing Anna's confusion, came closer to her, speaking in a calm but insistent voice. "Anna, you can't run away from what's going on between us anymore. You know that as well as I do. How much longer are you going to hide?" These words struck her in the heart. Anna felt a wave of confusion and fear wash over her, but at the same time she could no longer ignore the truth. Her life had long since lost its former stability, and all that was left was to make a choice that would change her destiny. "I don't know how to live with this," Anna said in a quiet voice, feeling something breaking inside her. "I'm afraid that I'll never be able to go back to what was." Vladimir looked at her with a soft smile, and his voice sounded comforting. "You don't need to be afraid. Everything that happens because it should be. We can't change our feelings, but we can accept them." These words penetrated deep into her soul. Anna understood that Vladimir was right. She could no longer run from her feelings. But at the same time, she was overcome by deep guilt before Pavel and before herself. She felt that she had betrayed not only her husband, but also all her previous convictions about what her life should be like. That evening, when Vladimir left, Anna was left alone, lost in her thoughts. Her internal conflict grew stronger with each passing minute. She could no longer control her emotions, but at the same time she knew that her relationship with her father had crossed all possible boundaries. She was tormented by doubts, but most of all she was tormented by a feeling of guilt towards Pavel. Despite this, Vladimir continued to insist that they should be together. He put more and more pressure on Anna, saying that their relationship was inevitable and that they should accept their fate. Anna was torn between her duty and her feelings, and every day this pressure became stronger. Meanwhile, Pavel began to notice that his wife had become even more distant. He tried to talk to her, asked questions, but Anna continued to avoid communication. Her behavior became so suspicious that Pavel decided to talk to her directly. One evening, when Anna returned home after meeting with Vladimir, Pavel met her with a serious expression on his face. He could no longer tolerate her silence and decided that it was time to find out the truth. "Anna, what's going on?" he asked, looking into her eyes. "You've been acting strange for weeks now. I can't pretend I don't notice anymore. Is something wrong?" These words sounded like a bolt from the blue. Anna felt panic rising in her. She knew that she couldn't hide the truth for much longer, but she wasn't prepared for Pavel to start asking questions. Anna's inner world continues to crumble. Her life is no longer under her control. She becomes more and more immersed in her feelings for Vladimir, which become unbearably strong. She understands that their relationship has gone far beyond the bounds of a normal relationship, but she cannot stop this flow of emotions. Pavel finally begins to notice that something is seriously wrong and decides to take steps to find out the truth. After Pavel directly questioned Anna about her behavior, a tense silence fell between them. Anna knew this moment was inevitable, but she was not prepared for the confrontation. She tried to find words to explain her feelings, but none of them fit. Her soul was filled with guilt and confusion, and the weight was becoming more and more unbearable. After Pavel leaves, Anna's house falls silent. Every room seems empty and cold, as if her husband's departure has destroyed the last hope for a normal life. Anna feels completely devastated. The revelation she feared has happened, and now she is faced with the irreparable consequences of her actions. Everything she knew and valued has been destroyed in an instant. Despite this, Vladimir does not disappear from her life. He understands that now that Pavel has learned the truth, he and Anna can no longer hide behind false explanations and secrets. Vladimir continues to insist that their relationship is inevitable and that they must both accept their fate. But Anna no longer feels the confidence she once did. The guilt she feels towards Pavel, whom she betrayed, eats her up from the inside. One evening, when Vladimir comes to see Anna again, their conversation takes on a new, even more intense character. Anna is sitting in her living room, lost in thoughts about how her life has turned out, when Vladimir comes in and tries to talk to her. "Now that Pavel is gone, we can be together," he says, trying to speak softly so as not to frighten her. "Everything that happened is behind us. Now we are free." Anna looks at him but doesn't answer. The image of Pavel keeps flashing through her mind, his confused and pained face when she confessed her feelings for her father. She understands that everything is already destroyed, but she doesn't know how to move on. Her feelings for Vladimir are still strong, but at the same time they no longer seem as right to her as before. "I don't know how to live on," Anna finally says, her voice shaking with emotion. "Everything I had is ruined. I betrayed Pavel, I betrayed myself. What now?" Vladimir takes a step towards her and tries to take her hand, but Anna pulls away. She is no longer sure that their connection is what she really needs. She sees in him not only the one she loved, but also the cause of all her suffering. "Everything will be fine, Anna," Vladimir insists. "We'll get through this. We always knew we'd be together, and now we have a chance. You just need to stop being afraid." But Anna can no longer ignore the fact that her choice has led to the destruction of her life. She no longer feels the joy of communicating with Vladimir as she once did. Now she is filled only with guilt and insecurity. Several days pass, and Anna becomes more and more withdrawn. She stops going outside, avoids communicating with people, feeling isolated from the world. Vladimir continues to visit her, but their conversations are no longer the same as before. Anna has become cold and distant, and Vladimir notices this. One day, Vladimir decides to take decisive action. He comes to Anna late at night, deciding that they must finally accept their fate and start living together. He tries to convince her that everything that happened was inevitable and that they need to move on. However, Anna, already cornered by her inner experiences, reacts to his words differently than he expected. "Vladimir," Anna says quietly, raising her tired eyes to him, "I can't live like this anymore. I can't. I don't know what's happening to me, but I feel like everything I did was a mistake." Vladimir does not understand what she wants to say and again tries to calm her down. "You're just afraid of change. That's normal. But we have to be together. You know that, Anna." But this time Anna stands up resolutely and says with firmness in her voice, "No, Vladimir, you don't understand. I can't go on. We destroyed everything I had, and now I don't know what to do. I can't live like this anymore." Her words take Vladimir by surprise. He did not expect such a turn of events, and his face becomes serious. He takes a step towards her, but Anna pulls away, feeling that their relationship has already crossed a line that she can no longer ignore. "You can't leave me," Vladimir says sharply, his voice becoming threatening. "We're connected, and you know it." But Anna is no longer afraid of him. She understands that their connection has brought her to the edge, and now she must make a choice: to continue this destructive path or try to find a way out. She looks at Vladimir, and there is a hardness in her eyes that was not there before. "I can't do this anymore," she repeats, trying to hold back her tears. "This has gone too far." Vladimir, realizing that he is losing control of the situation, leaves, leaving Anna completely confused. She is left alone in the darkness of her house, feeling an emptiness growing inside her. Now she must make a choice that will change everything. Vladimir no longer seems to her to be the person she was attracted to, and her feelings. "You're hiding something, aren't you?" Pavel spoke again without looking away. There was hurt and confusion in his voice. "Tell me the truth. You have to explain this to me." Anna could no longer hide her emotions. Her face was pale and she felt something breaking inside her. She felt that if she told the truth, her life would be completely destroyed. But silence was no longer an option. "Pavel," she began quietly, her voice trembling, "I can't explain. It's too complicated." "What's too complicated?" Pavel asked insistently. "I deserve to know what's going on in our family." Anna sighed, trying to collect her thoughts. She knew that this was it, the moment of truth. A struggle flared up inside her between the desire to keep the secret and the need to release this oppressive tension. "It has to do with my father," she finally said. Pavel frowned, clearly not expecting such an answer. "With your father? What do you mean? Did he do something?" Anna hesitated. She didn't know how to tell him everything that had happened between them. The words were stuck in her throat. But at that moment, Pavel already understood that they were talking about something serious. His anxiety turned into suspicion, and he began asking questions even more insistently. "Anna, what is between you?" There was a note of mistrust in his voice. "You have to explain it to me." At that moment, Anna could no longer hold the truth inside. She felt her inner world crumbling under the pressure of her emotions. Her voice was weak, but she managed to say, "We have something more than just a father-daughter relationship." These words sounded in the silence like thunder. Pavel froze, not believing his ears. He was silent, trying to comprehend what he had just heard. Anna continued to look at the floor, avoiding his gaze, feeling betrayed by her own confession. You mean to say that—" Pavel couldn't finish the sentence. His voice was filled with shock and indignation. Anna nodded, feeling tears roll down her cheeks. She couldn't hide the truth any longer, even though her heart was broken by the realization that she had just destroyed not only her marriage, but everything she and Pavel had built together. "I don't know how it happened," Anna continued, her voice barely audible. "I didn't want to. I didn't know how to deal with it. But now I can't live with this secret anymore." Pavel stepped back, as if he couldn't believe the reality of what was happening. He looked at Anna for a long time, and then his face became stern, full of resentment and pain. "You betrayed me," he whispered, hardly believing what he heard. "How could you? This is madness." Anna tried to say something in her defense but realized that nothing could change. Pavel turned abruptly and left the room, leaving her alone in her silent grief. She understood what she had done, but now that the truth had come out, she didn't know how to live with it. The next day, Pavel left home. He left Anna alone, without saying a word about his future plans. Anna was left alone with the ruined remains of her life. Now that her secret was revealed, she had to understand the full depth of the consequences of her actions. Meanwhile, Vladimir, having learned about what had happened, came to her again. He understood that now that Pavel had learned the truth, their relationship had entered a new stage. He continued to convince Anna that they needed to be together, that this was their destiny. After Vladimir leaves, Anna is left alone in her empty house. Silence becomes her constant companion, and thoughts about what happened torment her day and night. Her life has turned into chaos, and now she is forced to pay for her actions. The realization that her choice led to the destruction of her family and her own happiness becomes an unbearable burden for her. Anna no longer wants to see Vladimir. Her feelings for him, which once seemed inevitable and natural, are now filled with bitterness and pain. She begins to understand that their relationship was destructive from the very beginning, that it was not love, but something that leads to self-destruction. She cannot believe that she allowed these feelings to take over her life, destroying everything that was dear to her. Meanwhile, Pavel has not been in touch. Anna has not heard a single word from him since he left. This silence weighs on her even more. She knows that she broke his heart, but she cannot find the strength to ask for forgiveness. She is not sure if he will ever forgive her, and this uncertainty makes her feel even more lost. Days pass, and Anna sinks deeper into a state of hopelessness. She avoids contact with friends and acquaintances, afraid that someone will find out about what happened in her family. She is afraid of condemnation and does not know how to explain her actions even to herself. Everything that used to make sense to her now seems alien and distant to her. One day, while sitting in the darkness of her home, Anna receives a message from Vladimir. He asks her to meet, saying that they need to discuss the future. He still believes that they can be together, that their connection is inevitable, and that they should start all over again. However, Anna no longer feels the same way about him. She is overcome with fear and anxiety at the very thought of meeting him. She realizes that she no longer wants to continue this relationship, but she knows that Vladimir will not let her go so easily. Despite her fears, Anna agrees to the meeting, realizing that she needs to close this chapter of her life. She understands that there must be a conversation in which she will finally explain to Vladimir that their relationship is over, that she no longer wants to continue this destructive relationship. The meeting is scheduled for the next day, and Anna feels anxiety growing inside her. The next morning, Anna wakes up with a heavy heart. She knows that this day will be decisive. Trying to cope with the panic that is gripping her, she goes to meet Vladimir. They agreed to meet in a small cafe on the outskirts of the city, where no one will disturb them. When Anna enters the cafe, she sees Vladimir sitting at a table in the corner. He looks calm, but there is tension in his eyes when he sees her. Anna sits down opposite him, and a heavy silence falls between them. They both understand that this conversation will be their last. "I'm glad you came," Vladimir begins, trying to speak calmly. "I knew you needed time to think things over. Now that Pavel is gone, we can start over. We can be together, like we were meant to be." Anna looks at him and realizes that the Vladimir she knew before no longer exists. Her feelings for him have changed. She no longer sees him as the man she was so drawn to. Now she sees the man who used her weakness to subjugate her. "No, Vladimir," she answers firmly. "We can't be together. This was all a mistake. I don't want to continue what ruined my life." Vladimir, hearing these words, tenses up. Uncertainty and even anger appear in his eyes. He cannot believe that Anna is rejecting him after everything that has happened. "It's not a mistake, Anna," he insists, his voice growing sharper. "You just don't want to accept the truth. We're connected, and you know it." But Anna no longer feels afraid of him. She finally understands that her life is her choice, and that she will no longer allow anyone to control her. Her voice sounds confident. "No, Vladimir, I was wrong. You were a part of my life, but now it's over. I need to move on, and you won't be a part of my life anymore." These words come as a blow to Vladimir. He stands up, his face contorted with anger. He tries to convince her that she is making a mistake, that she does not understand what she really wants. But Anna remains adamant. She finally realizes that her feelings for him were not true love, but a manifestation of her own inner fears and insecurities. Vladimir, realizing that he is losing her, tries to threaten her. He says that he will not let her go, that she will never be able to live without him. But Anna is no longer afraid. She gets up and leaves the cafe without looking back. After her conversation with Vladimir, Anna feels a huge weight lift off her shoulders. It was one of the hardest encounters in her life, but by breaking ties with Vladimir, she finally found inner freedom. She realizes that her life will never be the same again, but there is something liberating about that. She can start over, without the destructive emotions and burdens that have haunted her for the past months. Anna returns home, and her heart is full of conflicting feelings. On the one hand, she understands that she made the right choice by breaking off relations with Vladimir. But on the other hand, she still has another difficult task ahead of her: to restore her life, destroyed by her own decisions. She spends her days alone, analyzing all her actions and trying to figure out how to regain control of her life. A constant feeling of guilt towards Pavel torments her. She understands that she betrayed him, destroyed their marriage, and now does not know if he will ever forgive her. The thought that Pavel could leave her life forever causes her to have panic attacks and grief. But Anna knows that she must find the strength to move on, even if their paths never cross again. A few days later, Anna decides to write Pavel a letter. She understands that he is not ready to talk, but she feels the need to explain everything that happened. She needs him to understand how deeply she regrets her mistakes and how much she wants to return to her former self. The letter is not easy for her. Each phrase seems painful, but Anna feels that this is the only way to take the first step to atone for her mistakes. In the letter, she admits her guilt, describes all the feelings that led her to this mistake, and asks Pavel for forgiveness without waiting for his answer. She knows that, in his place, she would hardly be able to forgive such a terrible betrayal, but she needs him to know that she has realized everything and is now trying to fix her life. After sending the letter, Anna continues to rebuild her daily life. She decides to start small, to tidy up her house, which has become filled with the heavy air of loneliness. Her garden, which she loves so much, has long been overgrown with weeds like her own soul. Working in the fresh air helps her gradually cope with the internal storms. She begins to return to simple, routine activities that once brought her joy. These are small steps, but they give her the support she needs. Meanwhile, Vladimir continues to try to reconnect with Anna. He calls her, sends her messages, insists on meeting, tries to convince her to come back to him. He threatens her, tells her that she will never be able to live without him, that he is the only one who truly understands her. However, Anna no longer feels the fear she once had. Her decision was firm, and she no longer allows Vladimir to manipulate her. One day, Vladimir comes to her house unannounced. Anna, noticing him through the window, feels the old anxiety for a moment, but quickly gathers all her strength and decides to go out to him. When she leaves the house, their eyes meet, and Vladimir, who is used to seeing Anna as a weak and hesitant woman, sees a completely different person in front of him. She is no longer afraid of him, and her voice sounds confident. "Go away, Vladimir, it's all over, you have no power over me." His face changes, and anger begins to boil in his eyes. He takes a step forward, but Anna stands her ground, not retreating a single step. She is no longer the one who was under his influence. "Do you think you can just give up?" Vladimir shouts. "You will always be mine. You can't live without me, Anna. I won't let you go." But Anna only calmly replies, "You've already lost me. You don't understand that you no longer have any power over me. I'm finally free, and you have to accept it." Realizing that his hold on Anna is gone, Vladimir turns around in despair and leaves, leaving her on the doorstep. Anna feels the fear and tension she has carried for so long slowly begin to dissipate. She watches him go, knowing that this was the final step toward her freedom. Her life is finally hers again. Back at home, Anna closes the door and feels calm for the first time in a long time. She knows the road to healing will be long, but she now has the strength to begin it. She decides to no longer fear the past, but to focus on building a new future. After her decisive breakup with Vladimir, Anna slowly begins to regain control of her life. She realizes that there is still a long way to go, but for the first time in a long time, she feels that she can handle it. Every day is a small victory for her. Now that Vladimir is no longer in her life, Anna can focus on restoring her inner balance and healing the wounds caused by her choices. The first weeks after meeting Vladimir seem strange to Anna. The silence in her house ceases to oppress, turning into a space for reflection and self-analysis. She no longer feels the constant fear and pressure that accompanied her for months. Although her heart still aches with pain and guilt before Pavel, she learns to forgive herself. Anna understands that she has made many mistakes, but she also understands that she has the right to a second chance. Gardening and tidying up the house become more than just a routine for her. They become a form of therapy. Every time she pulls weeds or puts away old things, it symbolizes letting go of the past. She learns to enjoy moments of silence and solitude that she previously found unbearable. These small steps help her regain her emotional balance. Anna decides to visit a psychologist. She needs to understand herself, her feelings, and understand how she ended up in such a difficult situation. Therapy becomes an important part of the healing process for her. During the sessions, she reveals her deep fears, childhood traumas, and moments of insecurity that led her to her relationship with Vladimir. She understands that her attraction to her father was the result of a void that she could not fill otherwise. It was a search for warmth and attention that she once did not receive, but now she must learn to find this warmth within herself, not in others. In parallel with the therapy, Anna begins to reconnect with the outside world. She reconnects with friends whom she had long avoided, fearing their judgment. Surprisingly, her circle of friends turns out to be ready to support her. Many of her friends, although they did not know the whole truth, understood that Anna was going through hard times and were happy to help her return to life. They did not ask unnecessary questions, did not judge her for her past actions, but simply were there, offering their friendship and support. The letter Anna sent to Pavel remains unanswered. Every day, checking her email or phone messages, she hopes to hear from him. She understands that his silence is his way of coping with the pain she caused him. Anna does not rush things or put pressure on him, giving Pavel time to make a decision. But her heart sinks at the thought that he may never forgive her. All she can do is wait and hope. One day, during one of these meetings with friends, Anna talks about her plans to return to work. Before all this, she was a successful interior designer, but in recent months she left her business. Now, feeling renewed strength, she decides to resume her career. This is not just a desire to earn money, it is part of her recovery. Work allows her to feel useful and gives her a sense of control over her life. Anna starts taking on small design projects again, working with clients, creating new spaces, and working with her hands helps her take her mind off of the heavy thoughts. She starts to feel stronger. Her confidence returns. Each completed project becomes proof that she can start a new life, despite everything that has happened.